Hey everybody, this is Surviving Darkness with Heather and Jenny, and we are on episode 44. Been kind of a rough week, a few weeks. Heather was under the weather last week and sounded like a man. I've been under the weather this week, and it's kind of one of those, we didn't know when things were going to happen and when we were going to get to record or whatever. We've been trying to do it earlier in the week to make it better on Jesse, the sound man, and just not worked out.
I've had so many doctor's appointments to go to that weren't even mine,
that
I don't know if I'm coming, going, done being, and I've got 2 doctor's appointments next week to go to that aren't mine.
Yeah.
And then a doctor's appointment the week after to go to that's not mine.
Yes.
I can't get mine done because the insurance won't approve my MRI.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. We won't talk about that on here.
But yeah, it's been a little stressful, and things have been just
Yeah.
That's just the best way to put it. I'm not gonna say crazy. It's just been dreams, crazy dreams.
I have been having those
all the
too.
time.
Yes.
All the time. It
Even
seems like,
with my, where I've been sick, even my naps are not good dreams right now.
Well, I figured out what was causing me to have the crazy dreams back to back was NyQuil.
Oh yeah, it'll do that. You're sensitive to that stuff too.
Very.
So, yeah.
Very.
So,
and I've figured out that I might not want to take that if I don't want to have vivid, crazy dreams.
Yeah.
But we were talking earlier about what we were going to talk about today. And I told Jenny that I sort of felt like we ought to talk about, we talk about triggers and stuff, but just the cognitive stuff, the whole draining part of something that causes the trigger, but the effects, the long term, it's not like you just automatically go into fight or flight and it's over once the trigger is gone, or once you realize, oh, I've been triggered, or once you've gone through a meltdown, or you react to that trigger. Sometimes it's days that it just weighs on you.
Yep.
And we were talking about our mom and how she doesn't really talk too much about the things that have happened with her. And you use the word compartmentalizes. It's like she talks about the things that have happened to Jenny and I, but she doesn't relate it to her and the things that she's gone through.
Right.
It's more, well, y'all went through this and y'all went through that, and she never says we.
And she acknowledges that she was a victim.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And which she doesn't listen a lot, and that's fine. She may not be able to, my husband doesn't listen, yours doesn't listen.
I don't listen.
So, yeah, and that's fine,
Right.
And we don't put anybody down for not listening,
Right.
I mean, whatever, that's fine. And some
Right.
people just can't. And, and even though there's days that we really don't even talk about all the stuff that we've gone through in detail, to them, that's what we talk about every week. And because they don't listen, because they don't want to hear that stuff that we've gone through, because they care about us and
Right.
it makes them sick. And I get that,
Right.
But so with Mom, she will talk, like you say, about us and what we've gone through, and that, she hates it. And she went through just as much, if not more in some respects, than we did.
Right.
Because especially your husband is supposed to be the one that protects the wife and not puts them in harm's way and things. And yes, like we've talked about, sometimes for me, it's a hard line, because there was something else that did contribute to the things that went on. And he wasn't a horrible person all the time. But at the same time, it's hard. And that was one of the things we talked about last week, how it's hard to figure out where that line is between love and hate, basically, I mean, with as far as he's concerned.
And they talk about trauma and not dealing with trauma later on in life can cause like dementia and stuff like
Yes.
that. And she has quite a few signs of dementia and stuff.
Yes.
Like
in the past few years, it's gotten a lot worse.
Right. And like the one thing that really stood out with me was whenever she was on jury duty and there was a case of a man who had sexually abused his wife and strangled her and stuff, and mom couldn't be on the jury. And I understand. I mean, I understand that. It was the reasoning that was confusing, because it wasn't that I've gone through that, and I've hearing those details, I don't know that I can separate what I've gone through from this case and not be biased.
Yeah.
That wasn't the logic in her case. The logic was, I can't be a juror on this case because I need to stand up for my girls.
Yeah. And if she was thinking logically, it would have been the way for me to stand up for my girls would be to be a juror on this case and
make sure that
he gets what he deserves, or
and no one else will have to go through it
Yes.
from this person, the way my girls went through it for years.
Yes.
But it was more, I had to walk out because I couldn't do that to my girls. And I was so confused. I was like, I'm not comprehending that.
And although we appreciate her absolutely wanting to defend us or to stand up for us or whatever, the context of it just did not make sense. And so you're living here now, so you see it on an everyday basis, and I've seen it over the years more because, just because, like I said, circumstances have made it where I was around here more at times, and now you're around here more. And so I guess over the years we both put the pieces together for the other one, if that makes sense. You couldn't be here and you weren't around as much because you had a family, and now it's completely reversed. And so, like we were talking before we got on here, one thing that bothers me is I used to call mom all the time, about everything, call her a couple times a day. And now it's like she's almost not even the same person some days.
Yeah.
And yeah, do we think it's probably dementia? Yeah, or Parkinson's or whatever, both together. But it is also unprocessed, undealt with trauma responses that her body is doing automatically that she has no control over.
Right.
Because she has not had any type of therapy to process through anything that she's gone through.
Right. Like we can watch a movie and something will happen in that movie and she gets angry at the characters because of it. And she has like even, our mom is not a racist type of person, but she's even like blurted out like racial slurs. And I'm like, and I get it because we were forced by someone of a different race.
Yes. Yes.
But you can't lump everybody in that race.
No.
That is like saying we hate every white person because our dad was white and abused us.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
But in her mind, it's logical. So it's those kind of things. It's like, well, who is this? Because our mom was never like that. Never like that. And negative. just about every situation, everybody, everything that's going on in people's lives. It's negative, negative, negative. And she was not like that either.
No.
So it is hard. It's hard living here and being like, who are you?
Yeah.
Where's
Absolutely.
my mom? Where's my mom?
Yes. And she still would do anything for anybody. She does, you know. But then it's like, when do we draw the line to say, okay, you can't do everything or do anything for anybody anymore, because not sometimes you're a danger to them and to yourself, you know. And so that's a hard thing too, because you want them to still have their independence and do things and all, but then at the same time, like with doctor's appointments and all of that, unless it's just a regular, let's get your medications refilled, somebody has to go with her. If it's anything that it's going to be processed, need to be processed, we have to have somebody else there with her.
Like going to the hip doctor.
Yes.
She was like, well, I guess Jenny's working, so I guess you're going to have to go with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, they really don't want you walking pretty much on that hip.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'll probably have to drive you over. Well, you know, I can do some things on my own. But then she turned around and said, you know, it is better that you go, because I need that extra set of ears to hear what's going on, because I'm not going to remember by the time I get home.
Yeah.
What all was said. But it's still fighting for that independence.
Yes. And it's hard right now for us to kind of decipher between what is possibly something going on mentally, like, you know, with dementia or whatever it is, and trying to figure that part out, versus is it PTSD and, you know, her mind trying to just cover things, or it's weird right now. It's a really hard spot.
Like, this is one of the issues that I just dawned on me what it was. Her clock in her bathroom is up too high. I've changed every clock back in the house except for that one, and I can't reach it.
Yeah.
And she said that we would get my husband to do it, and she was like, no. She said, I'll go ahead and do it. I said, how are you going to do it? She said, I've got a step stool. I said, you are not stepping up on that step stool. I said, I was in the kitchen with you the other day, and I stayed in there right beside you because you were on that step stool up in the cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I am not an invalid. I can do stuff. I said, Mom, you can't even walk on straight ground.
Level ground. Mm-hmm.
I said, and you're standing up on a footstool.
Yeah. Yes.
I said, no, you're not an invalid, but there are safety things that you need to be aware of. If you can't even walk on uneven ground without falling and losing your balance, the last thing you need to do is be standing up on a step stool.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard to see somebody, and you know that it's hard for them to start losing that independence.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard for me because with my occupation all those years, it was, I was supposed to think ahead for people and help them with their safety awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, don't climb in the tub without a transfer bench or something like that because you can fall. Take down your shower doors because they're glass, and if you fall through those, you're really going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And things like that. Like, that was my job, to think ahead of what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an automatic for me. And it's not that I'm trying to take away independence. I just don't want her to fall. And let's be honest, I've had patients do it, break their neck.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I mean, a hip is bad.
Yeah.
But I've had patients that broke their neck.
Yeah.
And the little space between the countertop and her sink is enough distance to where if she fell, she could break her neck in that
absolutely.
space.
Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, I'm thinking like not just a hip, but I'm thinking, you know, if you fell and hit your head, you're going straight back and you're hitting the sink because there's that island and then there's the counter. So
which she did several years ago, when she fell in her bathroom,
right,
and hit her face, and
right,
you know, and
right.
So, yes.
So I feel like it's like I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm arguing with a kid.
Yeah. And living here and being here all the time and seeing it and having to deal with it and everything.
And I really think a lot of it is not dealing with the trauma.
Yes.
And things will bother her, like her telling me, I really wish I would have done more. I could have, I should have, and I could have, and all this. Well, it wasn't meant to have been stopped, evidently, at that time.
Right. Which we have said numerous times.
Right.
And said to her numerous times that it was God's timing, that when everything was supposed to come out, it did. And if it was meant to before that, it would have.
And like I told her, I was like, you can't keep dwelling in the past and feeling guilty over things that you can't change now.
No.
And it's not saying that mean, like, well, maybe you should have done that years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, you can't change it now. So we've got to focus on the present and the future,
mm-hmm.
and not dwell so much on the what if and I should have and all of that, because I should have not messed with the Ouija board.
Right.
I was a teenager. I didn't know
right.
what all it caused, but in my mind, I knew it wasn't a good thing to mess with.
Right. But it was also presented to us like we should do that.
Right. But what I'm saying is, there's things that I could have, should have, would have.
That could have changed things,
right.
but God has a plan, and He allows things to happen, or He does things that are going to happen. I mean, you know what I mean? So yes. And well, that's what we've said to her too, was we don't blame her. Mm-mm. She was her own victim and going through things that people can't even imagine.
And I feel like me and you are different in the way we handle that. It's not that I am an uncaring person. I'm not emotional, and I'm uncomfortable with mm-hmm. emotional things like that. Mm-hmm. So my reaction is, it's the past.
Right.
You can't do nothing about it. Just leave it alone. Mm-hmm. Just leave it alone. And not trying to sound mean when I say that. But I feel like you would have been more like, it's okay, Mom.
Right. And we do handle things totally different. You're more harsh and to the point, and not saying that mean. It just
when
is.
She came in, was upset over the whole jury thing. I get uncomfortable under those situations because I don't know how to deal with those situations. Mm-hmm. I want to pull myself out of that situation. Whereas I know that you would have been a better person to be here that day, because you would have hugged Mom and you would have told her, it's all right. And I can't at that.
But you know what, too? I just had a conversation the other day with a very, very, very good friend of mine who happens to be a good coworker. And anyways, she also told me that I overextend myself and attend to other people a lot more than I should, because I don't watch out for myself all the time.
Yeah.
And those are, to be a nurturer, which is what I am, that's just how I am. You feel like you have to take care of everybody else. And
See, I'm that way in a different way. Mm-hmm. I'm that way on the outskirts, whereas you're that way in the middle. Like, I cook for people, make sure they're taken care of, their physical needs, their main needs, like food, water, that kind of stuff. And you're more of the nurturing, the love, mm-hmm. that kind of stuff. Whereas I show you I love you by making sure you have what you need.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Making sure that you're fed, making sure that you have a roof over your head. Like, mm-hmm. I will open my house up to people and be like, yeah, you can stay. And
and it's funny because I am closer to people, you know what I mean? Because of the way that I am. but I can't open my house up to people.
Right.
And you can, which is weird because you aren't as nurturing, but you
and
can.
I would be the type, I'm more of the type,
Sorry,
like,
my nose is getting stopped back up
like
again.
if I know that someone is like, they have no groceries or whatever, I'm going to buy it for them or whatever, and I'm going to leave it on their porch and go on about my business.
Right.
Because to me, saying, oh, here you go, here's your stuff, they're going to want to hug me or going to thank me, and I don't want that attention. So let me do it like away.
Right. Yeah.
On the outskirts, because I'm uncomfortable with that kind of
interaction.
Yeah.
And physical being, like with somebody.
Right. That closeness.
But that also goes back to
the trauma
and the way that things were handled when you were younger.
Yeah.
You and I could be the exact same person if you were allowed to have been hugged on by our uncles and things like that. And, you know, and I think about that too. I truly think about that you distance yourself, and you were distanced when you were younger because of the circumstances and because you tried to get help for what was going on.
Right.
And you were shunned. And so in the years that formed you and that part of your personality, you didn't have that.
Right.
You know, and you know, for a long time you were like, well, everybody likes you and this and that. And, you know, and that's before I knew that it was all, well, don't hug Heather and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? I would feel guilty because I hugged everybody. I still do. It doesn't matter, whatever. You know what I mean? And I would feel guilty because I'm like, well, I don't want everyone to like me more than they like you. It's not like I do that on purpose. It's just who I am.
Right.
But because of what had happened to you,
right,
your defense mechanism was to distance yourself and keep it that way. And that's just how you developed over the years.
Right.
And that's hard.
It is hard. It's
so, because you come off as, and we even joked calling you Ice Queen and stuff like that and acting like you didn't have any feelings, when the truth is you do care about people deeply. You just show it in very different ways. Than,
yes, I do.
So,
and it takes, someone has to really get to know me to know that. Because I am more offish, and I do have trouble with that. Like, after the fact, I thought, you know, she was so tore up and I probably should have gave her a hug. But it was like this wall up there. It was like, I'm not comfortable. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to react. If I was prepared, like, if someone dies and you're going to a funeral, you know, you're probably going to hug them. You're going to tell them I'm sorry. But when someone comes in and they're that distraught and upset, it's like, I haven't had time to prepare. I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now. I know that I should have more compassion. I know. And I'm like, where's Jenny?
And there are times still, like with Mom, you know, that I definitely would hug her. But at the same time, I'd be like, you know, because they didn't hug, they weren't affectionate in her family.
No.
And so, and even growing up, like I would just hug her or want to
like her. And,
yeah.
I mean, I was 18 before she ever told me she loved me and hugged me.
Yeah. And Dad would even say stuff to her like, she just wants to lay on your lap. She just wants her head on your lap. Just let her do that.
And
it's fine.
She just wasn't, like, she'll talk about, Dad will be like, well, why don't you come in here and watch this movie with me? She's like, because I don't like that movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's how she was too.
Yeah.
And that's what she was talking about the other night. He was like, she's like, all he wanted to watch was those shoot 'em up dad movies.
Yeah.
She was like, and he'd be like, why don't you come watch TV with me? Because I don't like what you're watching. And I'm like,
yeah.
There was no compromise with her either, honestly.
And her sister's like that a lot too. She is, you know.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they were like our grandmother. I mean, like our grandmother was one of the sweetest people ever, but at the same time, she was just like, no, I'm good being by myself. You know, like,
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, you know. And so, well, with you, you're not a hugger. I still hug you. I still tell you that I love you. And finally, after however many years it's been, you know, I mean, you hug me back. It's still a pat on the shoulder when you hug. It's not.
But if it makes you feel any better, I'm the same with my husband.
I know,
too.
that's what I was. Yeah, I was
I'm
getting ready to say. And
I'm like, you've hugged me long enough. Pat him on the back,
Yeah.
rub his little cheek, say, "Oh, you're so cute." Now get
Yeah.
off of me.
Yeah. And like, I know that hug and the pat on the shoulder is as good as it's going to get, but that's still a big step for you
It is.
to even do that. And
Right.
I mean, like, we get off the phone now and I'm like, love you. And you say, I love you too, you know, and you used to not say that a lot at all, you know, you just didn't.
Speaking of that, my boys amaze me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, how many 21 and 23-year-old boys get off the phone with their friends, their guy friends, and say, I love you?
Mm-hmm.
Every time they get off the phone with one of their friends or anybody, it's, love you, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow.
Yes.
Wow. I don't know who they got it from because it's not me.
Mm-mm. And their dad didn't do that a lot.
No,
like, you know,
he never told any of his guy friends he loved
yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But they're like, they have gone through so much loss that they don't want to lose a friend and have that their last words wasn't love you.
Yeah.
Don't want their friends to not know that they love them if something would happen.
And that gives me a lump in my throat because that's what I say. That's how I feel.
Right.
And I share memes like that. I'm like, I'm going to tell you that I love you. You don't have to say it back to me.
Right.
But I will tell you that I love you 50,000 times, but you don't have to say it back.
I love it that they can be out in public and be like, love you, bud.
Yeah.
And I'm like, teenage or late or early adult guys are too cool for that.
Mm-hmm. With their guy friends. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm like, they're not. They don't care.
No.
Their guy friends even say, I love you too.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll say it first.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's their bro code.
And to call them on the phone, and it doesn't matter who they're around, they'll be like, love you, love you, Aunt Jenny, or whatever, I mean, and it's, they don't care.
It just, with my oldest one, he's the one that's so tough and I don't care and this, that, and the other. And he got off the phone with one of his friends and he was like, love you, bud. And I was like, who are you? And I was like, I'm proud of you. And he was like, what? I said, well, I know Jesse and his little friends. I mean, they're all adult. They're 21. And his friends, but they've done it since they were teenagers. So I guess that's why I'm like, they're little friends. But they've done it since they were teenagers, did that. I didn't realize that my oldest son is 23 and his buddies do that too. And I was like, I mean, it just, my heart was just happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just overwhelmed with happiness that they can express. I can't. And I'm happy that they can.
But you do better than what you were a long time ago.
A lot better.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell people I love them first.
Yeah.
And my oldest son's ex-girlfriend came over and I was like, well, you better be giving me a hug.
Right.
And I wasn't ever really a hugger, but I really miss her.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really miss her. I hadn't seen her in like a year and she was part of our lives for 6 years.
Yeah.
So I was like, whether they're together or not together, she's still like a daughter to me.
Yes.
So I was like, you better give me a hug.
And she has gone through so much herself that she's having issues finding herself and figuring out who, I don't even know how to say it. Like,
she's 22 and has already lost her driver's license for DUI.
Yeah.
And she's lost her mom to an overdose. Her dad is strung out on drugs. Mm-hmm. She's had aunts and stuff that were into drugs. That's what she's seen her whole life. And then she wound up getting on stuff, which from what I understand, she's not on anything like that. She was having issues with alcohol,
Uh-huh.
even after she wasn't doing drugs. But she's working on getting herself back. But I just feel like I need to protect her.
Right.
Because she has no one. Her grandparents are gone. Everybody's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, she has an aunt that really is in her life. Her mom's sister is really in her life. But other than that, as far as adult people, she doesn't have a lot of good role models.
No, she does not.
So it's like, whether they're together or not, she's still like a daughter to me, and
Yes.
I'm still going to be protective of her.
And I just happened to see today, I was like, oh, her birthday's coming up. You know, I definitely got to make sure that, you know, tell her happy birthday, or we comment on her posts on Facebook and stuff all the time. And it's like, you know what? That's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is with all of our family. You know, if just because you've split up, if you were good to us and we loved you, then we love you, period, forever. It doesn't matter.
We're still friends with our first sister-in-law from when we were teenagers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, we see her out, talk to her. We're just fine, just because her and our brother didn't make it and have been divorced for many, 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 many years.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that she's not worthy of us caring about her. Just
and
because
they did not
together.
need to be together any longer.
No.
They didn't.
No.
I mean, it was not a good situation. There were kids involved, and kids seeing things that they shouldn't be seeing. You know, their dad not being, and which is our brother, was not a good dad, and you know, not a good husband, and
Right.
not speaking ill of the dead. I mean, if he was here, he would probably agree, you know, and say I wasn't, and she didn't need to be with me.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So, and that's one thing that I do like about us, is that it doesn't matter what the code is, you know, like, I don't care about that. There's no code that's going to tell me whether I'm supposed to love you or not, or if, you know,
whether I can talk to you or not.
Yeah.
Just because you and my son aren't together anymore does not mean I have to not talk to you because he's got a new girlfriend.
Yeah. And that was like my ex-husband. You know, when we were getting divorced, he was like, well, don't have anything to do with my family. And I was like, I don't have any reason to not have anything to do with your family.
They didn't do anything. Right.
No.
Right.
And, you know, and your ex-husband was like, if I see him out, I'm going to speak to him. And I was like, I don't expect you not to. I don't expect you to be mean to him. That's not between you all. And
I've only seen your ex-husband out one time.
Right.
In all these years. And I spoke to him.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just how we are, you know? I mean, like, it's not.
If you haven't done anything to me personally, why am I going to hate you?
Yeah, exactly. And
some people just aren't meant to be.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm. And my ex has a good life now, I'm assuming. I mean, I don't know, you know, they might fight every day. I don't know. But, you know, they've been together for a long time. They have a little one. You know, of course, there are days when I'm sure I could kill my husband. He could do the same to me.
Right.
Not literally, you know.
Right.
But we have a good life, you know. We have a little one and everything like that. I don't wish any ill on them. And as a matter of fact, I told his wife that, and that was the one that ended our marriage, you know. And I was like, excuse me, I said, I just want you to know that I don't have any ill feelings towards you all anymore. And the look on her face was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're talking to me, you know. But I kind of had to get that off my chest too, to just say, listen, we're good.
But that's who we are.
Yeah.
It's like, you've done me dirty, but I want you to know that it's all good. Whether they care or not, it makes us feel better.
Yeah.
I just want you to know I don't hate you anymore.
And that's what my husband said now. He was like, you did that for you. And I was like, yeah, I did. I said, it wasn't for anybody else. It wasn't anybody else around.
Right.
It was her and her little girl.
Right.
I was like, nobody else was around, but I needed to say, you know what? Our lives are good. So carry on.
Yeah.
Just carry
bygones
on.
Be bygones, even though you probably don't even ever think about me.
Yeah, and don't care what I have to say, but I'm going to tell you, you know, that, and maybe that's because as a Christian, you know, that maybe that's a part of growing as a Christian too. I just happened to think about that, to be like, you know what?
A witness.
Yeah.
You done me dirty, but it's okay. I mean, I still love you as a person.
Yeah. And I did wish, like, when things first happened, I hated both of them. And I've said that for years. I hated both of them. And I mean, like, the one regret I had, and I said it so many times, was that I didn't hurt both of them. and I did. I said that so many times, and I meant it at that time.
Right.
And now it's like, I'm totally indifferent. Right. You know, I hope that your lives are good. I hope that you're happy, because nobody needs to be miserable for all of their lives. You know, you just don't.
Right.
And we weren't meant to be. You know, I held on as long as I could, because, you know, you get married, you're supposed to stay married and everything. And I did love him even after I left, because of what was going on, because that was the only way our marriage was going to be done.
Right.
And I still loved him, but it just was not meant to be.
No.
So.
No, you would have been verbally put down for your whole life.
And I wouldn't have had a relationship with God.
No.
Because I had totally just, that wasn't there anymore. Like, I didn't have the desire to go to church a lot. Towards the end, I was reading my Bible and trying to get back into it more. But my husband now helps me with my relationship with God too, you know?
Right.
So.
Yeah.
That's like even practicing and stuff like that, like with church, you know. I'll be like, if I'm having a bad day with our little one, I'm like, I need you to come get him. Okay, I'll be there in a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not like, well, I just got home from work. You deal with him, you know. So.
Right.
And, you know, so anyway. But this week has been rough mentally, because, like you say, we're seeing a lot of changes in Mom that we've seen over the years. But it's like the past year.
And like you were saying earlier, she had a procedure done Monday, and there was mild anesthesia, but that really causes issues cognitively.
Yes.
Like, she was filling out the paperwork to go see the neurologist, and she was like, well, it says, what are my issues? I said, well, you have cognitive issues. And she was like, I don't even know how to spell that. And I was like, yeah, you do.
No, she doesn't anymore.
And then, I mean, I'm like, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And she was like, starts with C. I said, C-O-G. And then she finished it. But it's like, she didn't even know how to start the word.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So once I gave her the C-O-G, she spelled the word.
Yes.
Fine. And I was like, yeah, that's it. But it was like, saying that word, that word wasn't even registering. She's like, I don't even know how to spell that. I was like, but you do.
Right. Yes.
You do. So, I mean, it's little things like that we notice. And then I'm like, you need to talk about your handshaking. I said, put that on there. Your falls. She's like, yeah, I guess I have been falling. And I was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was like, when I said the word cognitive, it was like, I don't know that word.
Yeah.
And she does know it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, I don't even know how to spell it. I was like, C-O-G. And then she finished it. And I was like, yeah, that's it. And she was just like, what was wrong with me? I know that word.
Right.
But at first there, she blank. Just
and
total blank.
It's almost like, in my mind, do we kind of force her hand and make her start going to therapy, to start talking about some things and seeing if that kind of breaks through anything? But then again, at the same time, all the damage is done.
Well, sometimes I don't know when she's talking if she realizes what's reality and what's not. Because she'll say something and you're like, are you sure? And she was like, and you'll repeat what she said. And she's like, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
And in her mind, it's real.
Yes.
for that split second, and then it's like the light bulb comes on. That didn't happen.
Mm-mm.
I know it didn't. I just told you it didn't. Well, where'd that come from? Well, you just said it.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
And it's like sometimes it's like the light bulb isn't on.
Mm.
And then 2 seconds later it is. And I'm like,
And then sometimes you just know that it's not going to click,
no.
and you just have to go on.
Right.
And it's sad because you can see that she's trying.
Right.
And it's just not there.
And she's finally saying, I forget a lot of stuff. I don't remember things. I do need you all to go to the doctor with me because I don't remember things.
Yes.
And that has been hard for her to finally say. Because before it was, I didn't forget that. I knew that.
Yeah.
I don't know what y'all are talking about. That never happened.
So when I start thinking about things and forgetting things and get mixed up on my words, like I even on here, when I listen back, I'm like, I stumble on my words a lot. I'll have to take a second and rethink about things. And then I start thinking, well, what if I get like that? What if, something, and then I start to worry about that and everything. And I'm like, but I play these games for my mind, and not mind games, but I play the game for my mind and all this other stuff to kind of help,
That painting.
Yes. And so
that painting is a mind game.
Yes.
I
Yes.
guess if it stresses you that much, I guess it is.
Yes.
But yeah.
And then I worry, and I'm like, oh, but I don't want that to happen. And, it's just hard. And it's hard to know that the things that we went through and that she went through contribute to a lot of, we see the big differences between her and her siblings. Like her brother has a lot of physical issues and things like that. But the memory and all of that is still there. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I feel so bad because I'm like, her mom was smart as a whip up until she had the last stroke that took, which is why we all ultimately decided that hospice would be best and let her just go, because she couldn't communicate with us and
couldn't eat.
No, and she would have never been like that, never wanted to be like that. And to know that that's how her mind, and how her mom was, and even her her grandmother was the same way. Yeah. Totally with it in their minds up until they weren't, you know what I mean? Like done.
Right.
And just shows you just how our body responds to the traumas.
Yeah, her personality is totally different from her brother and sister.
Yes.
It's all the way around.
Yes.
Personality, the cognition.
Yes.
All of it.
And just such the negativity. And it's like...
She wasn't like that.
No.
She was always the one. She's so sweet. Everybody loved her because... And they do. They don't necessarily see all the negative that we see.
Right. Yeah.
But it was, your mom is so sweet. And she was.
Yes.
She was.
And we're not saying this to put her down, but we're just...
We've
the last few weeks, things have been really different, and we've had to notice more and to know that...
I think that us talking more might be what's doing a lot of that too.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
It's like the more we talk, the more she changes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have thought about that too. Absolutely thought about that.
But she'll bring stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed she's bringing a lot more stuff up than what she used to.
Mm-hmm.
She'll start the conversations.
And she'll talk about her feelings too. And no, she won't get on here and talk about it with us. Mm-hmm. That would probably never, ever, ever, ever happen. Mm-hmm. There would have to be some massive breakthrough. But even for her to be able to sit and have a conversation with us about this stuff
Mm-hmm.
is a huge step.
Right.
So,
Yeah. She just carries so much guilt. And that's what her fear of judgment from other people is what keeps her from really talking.
Yeah.
Outside of me and you.
mm-hmm.
I mean, she's starting to talk to other people when we bring it up. She says, yes, it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. She doesn't deny it or anything like that. But she feels so guilty that she feels that everybody else is going to project that onto her too.
And I think with this and the people that do listen to this, they realize just how much of a victim she was too.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and it's easy to look from the outside in and say, oh, well, there's no way that I could have ever let that happen, you know. But until you're living the hell every day, literally hell every day on earth, you can't say, I mean, you can say it, but you can't know what you would do in that circumstance.
Right.
When it's life or death.
And we've had that conversation. Like, we'll be watching Dr. Phil or something, and there'll be a story on there. Well, why didn't they do this? And I would have done. And I was like, no, Mom.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
No, Mom, you didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, it's easy to say, well, why I would have, and all. And I hate hearing people say that. Well, why didn't you do this? Well, if that really happened, then you would have done this.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Were you there?
Yeah.
Do you know all the circumstances around it? Do you know the fear that they may have had by speaking out? Do you know the threats that they were getting in order for them to not speak out? Do you know the brainwashing that was going on day in and day out, 24/7? No, you don't. So, no, you do not know what you would have done.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in their shoes.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You cannot say what you would have done unless you have been there yourself.
Mm-hmm. That is exactly right. Yes.
And I think that we have learned over the years not to say, well, I would have done and I wish they should have done and this, that, and the other because of what we've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard people talk about stuff and we couldn't say anything. And we've heard them like talk negatively about someone who may have been in a bad situation and this, that, and the other. So we knew the type of comments we would have got if we would have said something to that person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's been years of listening to other people's negativity that sort of stopped us from sharing what we had gone through. But now that we're older, we don't really care.
Yeah. Because like
anymore.
We've said, somebody else out there can get strength, hopefully, from listening to this, or kind of know a direction to take after listening to this. Or, you know, and like, you know, we've said too, if we only reach 1 or 2 people, then that's okay. That's fine.
Right.
That's helped 1 or 2 people.
Right. And there's so many days that I'm like, we've done 40 some. Should we just like stop?
Mm-hmm.
Are we even really reaching anybody? I mean, and I know it's just the enemy wanting us to stop, because I know that we are still sharing new stuff. We're still reaching people. And it may be a year or 2 down the road that somebody might hear that and be like, I really needed to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
It's still out there.
Right.
It's still out there. And there's still more to share. We're still dealing every day and seeing new ways that we're dealing and new situations coming
Mm-hmm.
up every day that we've had to tackle.
And as we're winding down for the night, we realized last week that when Heather gets done, Heather gets done. And Heather's like, mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, that's a wrap.
We're done. Well, we'll see y'all. We'll be back next week.
And that's how she ends. So just know that
it's nothing personal. That's how my day. That's how I end. Period.
That's how she is. And so when she says, "Okay, yeah, we're good," like basically we're done. So just know that she's not being rude to you all and she's not being rude to us. She's just done. And so that's
I'm
it.
shutting down. And I really do that. Like if I have company or whatever, it's like, you've talked long enough. I'm not hearing anything else that you're saying. I'm checking out.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yes.
And then we can be cutting up and laughing and everything else. And then I'm just done.
And I got so tickled last week because I'm sitting here talking and I'm trying to keep things going some and I feel like I'm to the point of rambling, and
I knew you were rambling. That's why I was done.
And I was just like,
I was already
I thought
done.
she was going to hop in. And I'm trying to give her a chance to hop in. And she was just like,
nope.
Deuces, I'm done. I checked out like 20 minutes ago, but I just didn't say anything.
Has left the building.
Yes. So anyway, if you've picked up on that in the past few episodes, just know that we have now addressed this and we know this. And so we are obviously figuring out
how to actually end.
Yes. So
that's the end friend.
Yes. Instead of just talking and then see you later.
We're good. Bye.
Yeah.
Y'all have a good week. Bye.
Yeah. And yes. So anyway, we're trying to soften that blow, I guess you'd say, a little bit, try to come up with a little bit of couth on how to finish these instead of just being like, see you later, done.
Well, I mean, I was done talking. You were rambling. I didn't see no sense in just dragging it on.
But I didn't know that you were done. I thought you were trying to think.
When I'm doing that.
Well, now I know.
Uh-huh.
Now I know.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yes, and that's, yeah.
And I'm giving you the vacant look.
But there's sometimes that I'm not done, and I would like to have some input, and...
Well, just keep inputting.
No. Anyway, this is...
Are you done?
I am done. This is the end of Surviving Darkness this week. So.
You all have a good week, and I'll let Jenny say bye. That way I don't feel like I'm being rude and cutting anybody off.
We'll be back next week, but we might take off or do something small for the week of Thanksgiving. With the holidays coming up, we really might have just short snippets, or we may even have like a rerun or something like that. Just let you guys know that, because obviously there are times that we don't. It's just hard some weeks to get everything going together.
And I do still plan on doing it's going to be like mini sessions, I guess, just talking about the different spirits with the spiritual warfare stuff and teaching how to deal with the spiritual warfare.
I think too, and I can talk about this now or we can talk about this off, but that's something that I know that you and Jesse talked about wanting to do, but I would like to be present on some of that too, because there's things that maybe I don't know that other people don't know too.
Okay.
That maybe as you're talking about it, I may have questions that somebody else might also, because you are more knowledgeable about that stuff than I am.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think it would be good. And even if there's times that we can't do together, I do go back and listen to these, and then maybe the next week I could have questions and you can answer those things too. And as always, if you have questions when you're listening to these things, send us messages and ask us, because
suggestions like, hey, maybe you should talk more about such and such. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you would like to know more about.
Mm-hmm.
Help us help you.
Yes. I do want to say, and I really don't want to end on this, but I feel like for some reason, I feel like this is something that I've needed to say, and I don't know why, but it's something that has been on my mind, and it's something that has bothered me tremendously. But there are things that I know that needs to be addressed, and I'm still trying to figure out the best way to put it, because that's going to be graphic. That conversation will be graphic. But there are things that I still need to get out, that I am not ready to yet, but needs to be on this, about trying to figure out ages of things that happened, and then how you deal with things that happen in a sick way, like losing your virginity and stuff like that, and it being a totally different way than everybody else does, and the responses that have come from that too when that does happen, and how we've had to cover that stuff up too in other relationships that we've had.
Right.
And that's something that I feel like does need to be an episode. How we had to manage
what's forced
what
and
was
what's chosen.
Yes.
I get you.
And what was the truth and what we had to say to make it, to cover the truth and everything. And eventually that will come. But that's something that, I really feel like needs to be addressed too, because I know that there are people that have gone through the same thing that we have.
Right.
And I that's just weighed on me heavily the last few weeks. And so anyway, so that's just something else that I needed to get out there too. Like for us to start.
Put it in your notes on your phone, so we'll have a subject.
Yes, yes.
To think about.
And we will, when that does come up, we will absolutely have like a warning or whatever it is, because we do try to, if it's going to be a really graphic one, or you're not like graphic, but at the same time covering rough content.
Right. We try to say so.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
we don't want to trigger other people.
No. But on a positive note, we will finish tonight, and hopefully next week we'll both sound normal and not be snotty and all this other stuff.
We'll sound well, because we're never going to sound normal.
No, we're never normal. No. So, but thank you all, and hope you all have a good weekend, and we will be hollering at y'all later.
Bye now.